Good evening, everybody. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. So, I know it's been a while, but I've been busy. So anyway, I want to talk about some of the dumb ideas Adam Silver had. First off, this in-game tournament thing. That's stupid. It's like, this is not college, it's the pros, so cut that out. But the greater concern is like the reseeding of the conferences finals, or trying to seed 1 through 16. And that's ridiculous. Here's why. We do not need to seed the playoff teams 1 through 16. If Adam Silver does that, shame on him. The problem is when a narrative gets set, okay? When a narrative gets set, it is there and it is hard to change a narrative. The media in the mid-2000s, dug in, said Peyton Manning's a choker, Brady owns him in the big games. Well, Peyton Manning, the last 3 times Tom Brady, the Patriots, and the team quarterbacked by Peyton Manning met in the playoffs, Peyton Manning's team won all 3 times, and they had a lesser team twice. In all 3 times. And, Manning holds a 3-1 edge over Brady in the AFC Championship game, and 3-0 lead post-2005 once Brady became an elite quarterback. It's hard to change a narrative, and the narrative is that the East is such an inferior conference. And that's not the case. You actually look at data, okay? The last 14 NBA Finals, the West has an 8-6 edge, so not much. And one of the finals the West won in this 14-year stretch I am talking about was 2011 between Dallas and Miami, and Dallas beat Miami, and it was a huge upset. You look at it, last year the East was pretty good. An East team won the finals, but the East was pretty good last year, at least at the time. And the same this year. There's some really good teams in the East this year. Toronto's still great. Boston's overachieving. Miami's playing great. Philly's playing great. Milwaukee's playing great. I think Brooklyn's going to start to play better. Indiana's playing well, despite no Oladipo. Heck, there are teams that are on the come-up, like Chicago and Atlanta. And you can't sleep on Orlando. So, now, alright, and let me ask you a question. How many times have you felt, how many teams out west do you really think could win the Eastern Conference if their personnel was on a team out east, alright? Alright, outside of the LA teams, like I can give you the LA teams, but I don't know if Utah could win the East. They maybe could, but I don't know. Same with Denver. And like last year, how many teams besides, I'll say, Golden State and Houston legit could have won the Eastern Conference last year? Alright, maybe a healthy Portland team could, but remember, Milwaukee and Toronto were 2 great teams last year. What about the, and you can go on, and, so really, you really look at it in recent years, around the last 4 or 5 years, the West has not been a superior conference to the East, and so we do not need to do this 1 through 16 nonsense. We don't need to do the nonsense that the WNBA does, where their playing format is garbage. Like, it's 8 teams qualifying, and like 8 versus 5 in a single elimination 7. It's a bad format. What we need is, what the format we need is 8 teams per conference make it, and the East team plays the West team. And when you look at it, here's another thing. When you actually take things into consideration, we would say, oh, an all-LA final. Well, now, obviously, the media would love that, and Adam Silver would love that. And while I think that would get ratings, because, it's LeBron and Kawhi and stuff, I'll say this, the 2000 World Series between the Mets and Yankees saw a dip in the ratings because it had been regionalized. So, you cut out a whole section of the East, you cut out Eastern Conference, where there are great basketball cities in New York, Boston, Chicago, Indianapolis, Cleveland, Toronto, Miami, great basketball cities. Memphis is a great basketball city. It could be in either conference. It's like it cuts me out. Colin Cowherd has made this point. How the college football playoff recently, it's been kind of regionalized. Like, you look at it, 3 of the 4 teams in the playoff last year were Alabama, Oklahoma, and Clemson. 2 Southern teams and a team in the Southwest in Oklahoma, but the only Northern team being Notre Dame. And it's like, the year before the playoff was Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, and Alabama, all Southern teams. Year before, right, you did have Washington and Ohio State in there, a West team and a Northern team, but Clemson, Alabama, 2015, it was, the playoff was Clemson, Oklahoma, Michigan State, and Alabama, so that's the thing. And you look at probably LSU's in, Clemson's in, because they don't play, mostly because, so it's like, when you regionalize something, it leaves out a whole portion. Like, I can tell you this, and when a whole part of the country, a whole section of your area, that can hurt. I graduated from the University of Memphis with a degree in history. My major at the University of Memphis was history. Okay, and as a history buff, I can tell you, the South didn't just succeed from the North. It wasn't just, a whole slavery issue. The Civil War was not just about slavery. Part of the reason the South succeeded from the North, Abraham Lincoln won the 1860 election. He did not win a single Southern state. So, and that's mostly because there are 3... there are like 3 Democrat candidates, so that's split the Democratic Party, and, but, you see, that's part of it, and when you're cutting out a demographic, that's the main reason why have East versus West. That's why probably a big reason the NHL and the NBA and the WNBA, leagues like that, have an Eastern Conference and Western Conference, unlike the NFL and baseball and MLB, which have, just leagues, American National. But, so you don't want, or like it feels too regional. So, to me, the NBA, this is a big problem. Adam Silver constantly does stuff to make people happy. And that's not the signs of a good commissioner. You can't just do that. And he doesn't want to make anyone mad. The NBA has some problems, and all these problems, they stem from the load management issue, which is nonsense. To try and cut down on load management, the NBA should say you get at most 10 games to do that, and you can't do it on a national televised game. So, yeah, that's like, obviously, when the Grizzlies become awesome, the Grizzlies, draft R.J. Hampton, and 2 years from now, 2021-22 season, the Grizzlies are awesome. Like, Grizzlies, when you travel to, Atlanta to take on the Hawks in a potential NBA Finals matchup, with Trae Young, John Collins, and a stud they draft next year, you can't sit Ja and Jaren and RJ, it's, for a national televised game, Alright, when the Bulls stop messing around and start playing up to potential with Zach LaVine and Lauri Markkanen and Wendell Carter Jr., and Chris Dunn, they're playing the, they're traveling, they're playing the Mavs with Luka and Chris Thompson, a stud they draft next year. No, you can't sit Zach LaVine to try and keep him fresh for June, and like that, sit your players out when they're playing Charlotte, or Minnesota, or Detroit, or, irrelevant games against tanking teams, Oklahoma City. Yeah, screw it. Yeah. Boo, Oklahoma City. So that's just thought of how to try and cut down on this load management nonsense. The NBA, there are ways to fix the NBA, but changing the playoff format is not the way to go. We do not need to be going 1 through 16. The East has not been an inferior conference to the West really the last 4 to 5 years. You really look at it. I mean, it wasn't an inferior conference last year. That was quite obvious when you legitimately felt 4 teams in the East could win the East, and at least, and really, given the injuries Golden State had, you felt like they probably, any that had Milwaukee made the finals, they would have probably beaten Golden State. Same with Philadelphia and Boston, and probably Indiana had Oladipo been healthy. And had Houston made the finals, you could argue any of them could have beaten that. And there's almost never a finals where it feels like the Western Conference Finals is the real NBA Finals. Houston, Golden State 2 years ago, Oklahoma City, San Antonio 4 years earlier are the only examples. So, that are in recent memory. Obviously, there was Phoenix, San Antonio 12 years ago. But the point is, the NBA does not need to do that. And just so Adam Silver needs to cut this out. And he just know 1 through 16. 1 through 8. Yeah, alright, you need to incentivize. The way to make it work is, I have solutions that you can make things better. You need to add some teams to the league, and because rosters are small, it's not like the NFL or in baseball where you worry about diluting the quality of the league. Rosters are small enough to where you can add more teams, add around 6 more teams. And that will, even if you keep it 16 playoff teams, no longer less than 50% make the playoffs, so that would cut down on load management. But to me, and then you have to incentivize winning your division. Not giving them a higher seed, but at least make sure if you win your division, you're locked to make the playoffs. But that's just my thought. But no 1 through 16. Just no. East champ, have it out. East versus West bracket. And the Eastern Conference champion takes on the Western Conference champion in the NBA Finals. That's how it is in the Finals, alright? And let me ask you, there are East teams that can win the title. Milwaukee can win the title, alright? If Philadelphia can play up to their potential, they can win the title. If Kemba's a superstar, Boston could, well, I don't know about Boston, but they maybe could. If Siakam takes up his game, the Raptors can just maybe, go back-to-back. So, that's just how. So no 1 through 16. So thank you very much. Have a great day. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. Please comment and subscribe if you have not already. Thank you very much.